Hello. Thank you so much for joining me today. STST, formerly known as Seek Truth, Speak Truth. But that sounds a little bit conspiracy nut, doesn't it? I came up with that in my conspiracy nut days. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to have a really fun chat with my main man, Deadly Dave. I'm just so excited actually to have like a little one-on-one discussion with the guy. When I first started live streaming, he was one of the very first people that sort of started to sort of jump on the streams and have a little chat. And it's going to be really cool to have a proper catch up with him. If you haven't already, please do as says below. Oh, look, that was quite. Oh, get me a job on TV. Look at that. I could go work for QVC or something. Would anybody like to buy a chicken? A wooden chicken? No, it's not going to work. I'm going to stick to YouTube. But please do hit that like button. It really does help YouTube know that people are interested and would like to watch what is happening. And boy, oh boy, have we got a show for you tonight. But I will hide that for now. I will take the hit the like and subscribe away because it is a little bit distracting. The chat, hello. 21 people here at the moment, and you are all legendary. Even Gary Wybenger. Charlie Welch, Gary Wybenger, Robski, Tiny Captain, FE Peer Review, David Oliver, Charlie Welch. There's a lot of Charlie Welches in here tonight. Martin H. Isa. To you all, I'm sure I saw a bit of Tiny Captain a little bit earlier. Yes, I did. Mighty Possum. And a little known, but even more known after tonight, Deadly Dave is in the chat. So thank him for coming along. FE Peer Review, what a legend. The format is we have a chat, a discussion about all things conspiracy for around about 45 minutes. This is a weekly series every Thursday, 8:45 p.m. UTC, England time, UK. Yeah, we love it. So thank you all. I'm noticing some names in the chat that are coming back. So you must like a little bit what we're doing. We've got 25 people now, so there's 4 more than I said earlier. Hit the like. Let's get more people in. Let's get more people in for the fun and the shenanigans. I don't know if Gary IOW is in the chat, but thank you so much. I have got to say, what a legend. He said to me in a comment, please check your email. And he has offered, well, actually, I've got some news before that some of you might not know. Me and Elbow are officially engaged. She said yes. To me, an ex-flat earther. But yes, she said yes. The rehypnol worked. Not really, I'm only joking. So we're getting married. We are getting married. Amazing news. I was so happy to think that a few years ago I had lost her mainly because of my flat earth beliefs, but she kind of stuck by, kind of went away from me, pushed herself away, but she was watching and she saw a man change his views and opinions and the way he thinks of the world, and I became attractive to it again, I suppose. So thank you, Elbow, for taking me back. But to Gary IOW, he has offered to travel all the way from Isle of Wight to my wedding, which is in Suffolk, to be the photographer on the day. So Gary, it's just amazing, mate. Absolutely amazing. Hopefully we'll catch this up. I just wanted to acknowledge on here so everyone within the community realised what an amazing guy you are, to have offered that. And he said for free. So that's going to probably save me what, £300, because we were discussing shall we have a photographer, shall we not? And, you know, everybody has a smartphone these days. And we had thought, you know what? You know, let's hope people take good photos. But at the back of my mind, I was thinking, oh, I really would just love to actually have some professional photography for the day. So Gary, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. FE peer review, you're invited too, mate. You're invited. You know that already. We haven't set an official date, but it is going to be in 2022. We realise that 2021 is a little bit of a stretch to be able to organise a wedding and save up. You know, it's not going to be some extravagant blooming thing. Like, we're very foresty, naturey. You know, very, you know, we don't like the bling, basically. So it's not going to be expensive, but all things like that do come at a cost. And I would love to obviously be able to offer Elbow little things that she wants, you know, that I'll be able to say, yeah, 400 quid, yeah, go for it. There you go, mate. So that's why we've decided 2022, give ourselves a chance to be able to actually, you know, fulfill the day as we want and not just be scrambling to try and get there. So yeah, you've all got time to save your pennies. If you want to come over, just let me know. You could always just stay for a few days around the area and let's just have a party, shall we? So if you want to come along. A naturist wedding, no, not actually a naturist wedding. Although the guests could come as naturists, that would be quite interesting. No, I'm only joking. All that matters is that you two are together. I'm proud of you, buddy. Thank you, Mighty Possum. Tiny Captain, I just had 3 friends that are hobby photographers taking pictures at my wedding. They were invited to my wedding anyway. Yeah, I've just realised your game, Tiny Captain. You deliberately invited photographers. Yes. No, I'm only joking, mate. No, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Enough of me keeping rambling on because our guest is probably going to be bloody falling asleep soon. I'm going to bring on Deadly Dave. So I'm about to add you to the stream, buddy. Oh, we're in flirf mode. I did change that earlier. It's gone back. There we go. There we go.
Evening.
How are you, mate?
Yeah, not so bad, not so bad. It's been a while.
It has, mate. It has been a while. I'm just going to bring you closer because my head looks a lot smaller than yours. So there we go. We're about even. No, good to see you, mate. Good to see you. It's a bit like I say, it's been a while, but I know you've been a really busy guy. So you know, we'll let you off, mate. We'll let you off. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can do, yeah.
Yep. Nice one, dude. Nice one. So what have you been up to then, mate? I know obviously you can't say too much because your job is classified. But
I don't know if I'd go that far. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of work on my master's, and you know, seriously needing to get it finished, which it's not quite yet, but pretty close. And I'm kind of working, I'd say full time, but I'm working 1.5 jobs as well on top of that because, you know, why not? So yeah, I've been fairly busy, but yeah, no, it's good. And I'm definitely I'm seeing kind of light at the end of all the busy now, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Nice. You know, the kind of the hard work is you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. The hard work is paying off.
Well, this is it. I've done a few demonstrations of the project a couple of times now, and they've gone pretty well. And now it's just a matter of finishing off the write up and actually just handing it over and yeah. Good luck.
Oh no, that's good to hear, dude. That's really good to hear, man. So what else you sort of been up to? You know, other than work? I mean, is there been anything that's been catching your eye, sort of conspiracy wise, or anything online that you've liked watching?
Well, I mean, there's lots online I like watching, but generally, when it comes to conspiracy stuff, I mean, I kind of hold fairly fast to the view that, you know, time is short and there's an awful lot of information and there's only so much we can know. So unless something can be demonstrated to be true, I just don't care. You know, it's like, yeah, maybe it is, but I don't care until you can show something is true. It's kind of just a waste of time. So generally, when it comes to, you know, conspiracies, I just look at them all as just generally pseudoscience. And it's like, you know, as soon as something's demonstrable about it, it's not a conspiracy anymore. So before that, I don't care too much about it. But yeah, there's a couple of one. Yep.
I know I was going to say, I suppose because something like is labelled as a conspiracy, like you say, most people are so evidence and like, or not most people, but some people are very like so evidence and fact based, and you know, they just would never fall for these kind of things, would they? If you know what I mean. There does seem to be such a disparity between, like, you know, someone that will believe in conspiracies and someone that won't.
You can still fall for stuff though. Just because, I mean, like, as I said, I try and hold fast to, you know, unless there's evidence, I don't listen to it. But it doesn't mean that I can't be fooled by incorrect evidence, you know, or something that's not evidence, or something that you know can be put across in a way. Like, quite often things are stuff that you can end up falling for is something that you don't have a great knowledge on yourself. And if somebody can speak with authority on that subject and use a lot of big buzzwords and stuff, it's reasonably easy to kind of think, well, again, due to that same nature that you don't have a lot of time to look at everything, you would kind of go, okay, that kind of seems true, and you can start falling into it like that. So just because you're skeptical, which I do like to try and be, doesn't mean you're not going to get fooled. It can still happen, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I noticed a lot with like, like, I don't know, say COVID, especially at the minute, obviously that's a big conspiracy topic as well, isn't it? You know, and I've got some guy trying to set up a debate. I thought he wanted a flat Earth debate, but like he's just about 10 minutes ago sent me this, like, you know, kind of anti-COVID video, and I'm obviously now going to say, look, in no way can I debate about COVID. Do you know what I mean? I'm in no real position to even do so. Maybe, you know, something for like Bullet Bill or something, but the video he sent me was like an actual doctor, you know, he's going on the news, and I looked him up actually briefly, and it did say he's like an NHS consultant, and you know, maybe previously after what he's saying, but like he's a cardiologist, and he was saying like there's a sudden increase in people, you know, with heart problems and things, and he's putting it down to, was it the vaccine and all of this? And, you know, but I'm thinking, you know, this is a doctor going on the news, but what evidence, you know, he didn't show any evidence at all. And he was just kind of saying, you know, I've noticed an increase, but that's it, you know, that was as far as his evidence went. And even my mind was just like, but, you know, where's your testing? Where is your evidence to suggest that, you know, this has actually gone up? And, you know, it just made me think, even, you know, I'm not saying he is wrong, you know, there always will be continuous studies, and, you know, like, you know, I'm sure if it was found out that it was causing, you know, mass heart problems, it would be shelved instantly, if you know what I mean. But it kind of made me think that even a top NHS doctor can go down a little rabbit hole without them even realizing it, if you know what I mean, because he was just talking through opinion, you know, and just what he thinks.
And interestingly enough, can I share my screen for a minute? Yeah.
Yes, mate. Yeah.
So share screen. Can I choose just one? I hope. Let me see. So this one, no, hang on. This one, oh my lord, where is that one? Okay, yeah. So just interesting, I was going to say that I was going to talk to you about kind of, you know, the 11 characteristics of pseudoscience. And just when you had mentioned about the fact that the doctor wasn't showing any evidence and he was being, you know, kind of vague and just using his personal experience, if you just look at what we have here, I mean, one of the first things we have is unfalsifiability, and where something, you know, basically makes vague claims or unobservable claims. So, you know, as you said, that kind of takes in the vague count. You know, you don't really have particular evidence there. Number two is, again, relying heavily on anecdotes, personal experience, or testimonials. So we don't even have to go very far down through the list. And those things you identified, they're the things that come, you know, right up the top of the list of the characteristics of pseudoscience. And, you know, that's unfortunately something that we have to be aware of. And as you correctly pointed out, it doesn't matter who you are or what your credentials are, you can be fooled. And that's why in science, authorities don't matter as much. Now, I don't mean at all. I mean, you know, if you get somebody that's very well versed on a particular topic, and then lots of other people also very well versed on particular topics, all come to the same conclusion, all kind of agree on stuff, then you can kind of start saying, well, these people are an authority in this area, but they're still available to be questioned. I mean, nobody is the ultimate authority on anything. And the point is, it's not somebody that you listen to, it's their points that they bring forward. And you listen to those instead of what they themselves say.
Yeah.
Or sorry, excuse me, instead of who they are.
Because within sort of say flat Earth, obviously, there's not any actual kind of people with high-end degrees or jobs that will turn around and say like, oh, the Earth is flat. Like there was one kind of physicist once, or supposedly, but he turned out to be not really a great one. But like obviously with COVID, there are a few, you know, obviously a tiny minority of doctors coming out. You know, it's going to be less than like 0.1% probably, but people will listen to that one doctor, if you know what I mean. Like, and people that probably wouldn't fall for flat Earth, but they will fall for what that one doctor is saying over the 99.9% that say the opposite, if you know what I mean, because he does have a slight bit of credibility.
And this is, again, unfortunate with that, as you said, it's one doctor versus many others, and
yeah,
it's something that people can fall into quite easily. And it seems weird to me. Like, I mean, I'm an engineer, so I mean, as far as stuff that I come across, nothing is ever absolute. There's always some margin of error, you know, something in there. So there's always, you know, nothing is exactly as you would imagine it to be. So as a result of that, like I'm looking at usually, you know, percentages and where things sit. And you know, if it's a 99% bet versus a 1%, and even 1% is massively high, there isn't 1% of doctors say this. But even if you give them that much credit and say it's 99% versus 1%, I mean, you can take the 1% bet if you want, but that's stupid. you know, it's just, you know, what sort of a bookie would you be? You know, so yeah, I don't get it. Like,
I'm just going to point out this comment by Charlie Welch. I just quite enjoyed it. Flat Earth is a social media bowel movement. Yeah, I think it's now coming out the other end though, isn't it, if you know what I mean. Like, it's kind of, we're a bit constipated, but it is coming out the other end. I realized the other day, again, this guy that was trying to set up this debate, and he's saying, you know, one of these like, oh, I'm not a flat earther, but I know it's not a globe. I've lost my train of thought with that now. What was that question again? Oh, bowel movement. So, no, I've lost it. It'll come back. It'll come back. King of memes is here. I take it we mean try thinking. Oh yes. There we go. But yeah, no, we've got a good few little topics that we are going to try and, you know, just have a little chat about. And obviously in the chat, what we generally do after around 45 minutes is we open the stream up as well, so there is actually a link in the description, so anybody that wants to join. I did notice Gary Wybenger there, so I thought that, you know, obviously again is probably not, but if you would like to join, come and join, and we can have a discussion about God maybe, because I know you are into that sort of thing. No, only joking. But yeah, like I say, we're going to talk about all sorts, but in about 25 minutes, something like that, we'll open it up. So anyone that would like to jump on, I see Mr. Jones 1972 there. He was the first guest. Limey plays second, and then we've got Deadly Dave as the third. So we're going well. We're going strong. Me and Dave actually did think of a couple of sort of topics, didn't we? You know, again, you can't be an expert in conspiracy theories, can you? Do you know what I mean? Like, because there's no real research to do. But you can look into things, and you can really just kind of make up your own mind. And that's why a lot of these things stay conspiracy theories, I think, because it's in the mind. You know, it's just literally someone's personal perception of, does this help me? Does this not? You kind of get what I mean.
There's a huge thing to be said as well for wanting to believe something. Like
yes,
a lot of conspiracy theories and other such pseudoscientific beliefs, they originate from a place of bringing people either comfort or aid in the belief that it's true. You know what I mean? And it itself doesn't necessarily have to be true. I mean, if you sincerely believe something, it's possible that belief can bring you comfort. I mean, the thing isn't necessarily true, but the belief itself can bring you comfort. And if that's the case, and especially then when you carry on living like that for a while, and the more you do that, then the harder it becomes to say, well, hang on, if this isn't correct, then all that comfort I derived in the past is now not valid anymore. So I kind of have to give that up. And sometimes people just don't want to necessarily be right. I'd just rather be comfortable. And I mean, that's fair enough. It's not something I would ever want. I would much rather find out if I'm wrong when I'm wrong as soon as I am. And I do my best then to, when I find out I'm wrong, change it so I'm not wrong in the future. But it's tiring. It takes effort, and it definitely it makes people mad at you sometimes to constantly just be kind of going, well, yeah, are we sure about that? Is that definitely the case? And it definitely grates on people, and it's definitely it can definitely be annoying. But I value truth, I suppose, and I'd rather know than not know.
Yeah, and you value real truth, don't you? You know, not one of these people that says, "Oh, I'm a truth seeker," and you know what I used to think I was. It's just silly, isn't it? But no, like you say, it is that way of, oh, I'm going to believe something because it does make me feel better. And I've, to be honest, got nothing against that, if you know what I mean. But it's when these things do get damaging, you know, because we've probably all got beliefs that aren't real that make our day-to-day lives a little bit easier. It might be just like a superstition of always putting your left sock on first or something, like, you know, if that makes you start your day better, then, you know, I'm not going to get mad or angry about that. But I always think it's when it does encroach on other people, you know, and obviously say religion is such a big one, isn't it? Like, you know, the amount of kind of destruction that religion has caused throughout time. It's what always makes me think, if there is a god or lots of gods, you know, they hate each other, and they're causing,
don't care about us. I mean,
yeah, you know, they really don't care. Yeah,
like you, I don't believe in a deity, but I have no evidence to rule one out. So I mean, it's possible of some description, I suppose. But if it is, I imagine it's something to, like, you know, people owning an anthill. You know, you don't care. You know, it's just it's absolutely irrelevant to you. So nobody's looking down and wondering whether or not you've you've kept parts of your genitalia, or they're wondering whether or not you eat fish on a Friday, or, you know, so nobody cares about any of that.
No. And if they did, I mean, what a type of god to follow. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that's what they really did care about, you know, it is horrible. We've got Bullet Bill. Hello, mate. How are you? Always good to see you, Mr. Bullet Bill. I mean, what about, like, astrology we mentioned, didn't we? Was another one, which, you know, I mean, what again, it may make people feel better about themselves, but essentially it's quite harmless, I'd say. I don't know, but there's a lot of people that do follow horoscopes.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're following horoscopes, and if what you're saying to me is, I know this is all nonsense, but you know what, it's a bit of a laugh, sure, go for it. You know, absolutely fine. That's that. You do you then. You know, have your fun. But if you're saying, like, you know, like, and again, like, these kind of things can have profound effects on people, because they might, you know, get a reading or whatever and be told, oh, if you do this, this will happen in your life, and they may go and do some foolish things because they believe that their stars have told them so, or some other nonsense like this. And again, one of the problems is that down at the base of it, like with all misinformation, the person now is making choices based on the wrong information. So in all likelihood, they're going to make the wrong choice. And you need to be armed with as much truth as possible to actually be able to make good choices for yourself. So like, even, I know you were saying earlier that, you know, you don't really mind, or sorry, we say some of it, we say it's the softer things, like, and again, I suppose I understand that they're everywhere and that lots of people have like superstitions and this, that, and the other. And I suppose as well, like I don't mind it, but I still recognize that it's all still systemic of the actual problem, which is we've allowed ourselves to believe things without evidence, and then that can lead to other things. We then decide, okay, well, this is like it's as you said when you stepped into flat Earth, it wasn't one thing immediately that put you onto it. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. Oh, my light is dying. My light is dying.
Oh, no problem, mate.
There we go. I fixed it. But as you said, you step into flat Earth, and it was kind of slow things that walked you in. Well, you know, we have to then be able to recognize that, well, how far back does that go? And then it kind of goes to, realistically, you can say, yeah, I'll enjoy anything for fun, and that's fine. As long as at the outset of it, you recognize, excuse me, that this isn't something that I should make decisions on, or this isn't something I should rely on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, I know exactly what you mean. I was speaking to some, she debated FTFE a little while back, but she's on Facebook loads. I can't even think of her name now, but she's heavy into like astrology as well. And she kind of shared something on this Facebook page, and I kind of asked a few questions, and I kind of stumped her a little bit, and I kind of thought, really, I've kind of debunked astrology. So my question was like, will my life change whether I read that horoscope or not? So, you know, either, you know, I could either not read it or read it. Is the outcome exactly the same? So if yes, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I mean, like, so if it is different, then like it's proof that basically what you've read has just changed the way that you're going to do things. But it is nothing to do with the astrology or the stars. It's literally what you have read. But then obviously if it doesn't change, if nothing's going to change, then don't bother reading your horoscope. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
and for me, the number one really thing that points out that horoscopes must be nonsense is there are 12 horoscopes and there are almost 8 billion people, which means that roughly 2/3 of a billion people share the same horoscope.
Yeah.
So they must all be doing exactly the same things. Yeah. That's just nonsense. You know, it's just, of course not. You know, like literally there's only 12 horoscopes and almost 8 billion people. How could that possibly work?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I used to have a mate in school, and, you know, we were born a couple of days apart. So we were the same star sign and whatever, you know. And I think even as a child, I used to sort of say, well, you know, I haven't got the same destiny as him. You know what I mean? Like, I know him, you know, and we live completely different lives. We're completely different. And, you know, like, it is silly. It is silly. SE Montreal maybe agreeing with us. Horoscope for real. Bahaha. Bullet Bill, STST, have you built your PC yet? No, mate. I bloody wish. No. I am still lacking the PSU and a microphone. And basically at the minute, I can't afford it. So I'm going to, as soon as I possibly can, I'm doing so much overtime at the minute with work. It's obviously, as you guys can imagine, all that do know what I do, it's getting rather busy. So I will obviously be able to afford to finish off the PC project very, very soon. I've got literally everything sitting there, and it's so frustrating just looking at it every day and just being so lacking.
On that, you don't have to have the mic just yet. I mean, obviously you won't be able to use it to talk, but from the point of view of building it, just get the PSU and we can get it built.
Yeah, man. That's it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think it was about £180 or something like that.
I don't think it should be that much for the PSU. I can't remember now, mind.
Or we're thinking of £80. Might be 80.
That sounds a bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't go looking it up now, but yeah, I think you're closer to around £80 with it, I'd say.
Oh, okay. To be honest, I kept thinking that was probably about 180, and there's a massive difference between 80 and 180, isn't there? Like,
sure is, yeah.
I get paid weekly. You know, so I've just got to save so much to try and just keep a roof over my head at the minute. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, it's just so tough for everyone. But we will get there. We will get there, guys. Soon. That's all I can promise. Like I say, I have done the video showing all the equipment, and it's just frustrating just seeing it sitting there. It's all still in its boxes though. It's not getting all dusty or anything. So, but we will be there soon. David Oliver, I'm a Virgo and I'm a great lover. Ooh, David. Ooh, I'm an Aquarius. But yeah, you know. But actually, I'm saying that I've even got a picture of like I don't know, this Aquarius-y picture. I just like the look of it. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, doesn't mean that I kind of follow those things, but you know. And apparently, actually, I'm not an Aquarius anymore anyway, because the way the kind of stars have moved. Yeah. So,
how does that work? You know.
that is
just
sorry,
careful,
mate.
I suppose, as well at the same time, that you know we don't just say something is bunk, even though you know it's obviously bunk, but just so we don't say something is bunk without being a little bit or doing a little bit of due diligence, shall we say? Let's see if I can click on here and click that again, and this guy, and no. Where did I? Oh goddamn! Too many screens, man. And it was this one. That one should be up there.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's just one of the papers I just pulled off Google Scholar based on you know, astrology. Now you can read the full paper if you want to pay 20 or 43 quid for it. I do not, so I'm not going to do that. Let's see, can I make it any larger? But basically, it finishes down with, actually, yeah, it's kind of on the screen now. So, despite the many claims of its practitioners and followers, extensive investigation has revealed astrology to be a great teetering monument to human gullibility. And that's basically what it is. It's just, you know, a matter of people believing what they want to believe out of it and getting kind of, you know, as we said, getting some sort of comfort from what they believe. And then just tradition probably plays a big role in it. I wonder, can I...
That is the thing, actually, isn't it? With I think a lot of astrology, obviously, did astronomy, I think, kind of come from astrology in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, I don't know. I might be making that up. It might be something. I
mean,
I've heard.
They're both staring at the stars. Just yeah. one of them is measuring, and one of them is just guessing, I suppose. But I don't know. I would say probably not, but it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose a few, like you say, it's looking up at the stars. So I suppose I've probably heard that more from astrologists than I have from astronomers, if you know what I mean, that they would say, oh, you know, modern astronomy comes from astrology, and, you know, they've forgotten the hidden wisdom.
But modern medicine comes from ancient medicine too. I'm sure not going back to ancient medicine though, because guess what? We didn't get worse as time went on. We got better, because that's how things work. You refine your method, you improve it, you weed out the problems. So yeah, ancient people might have done stuff, but they did stupid stuff. So I'd much rather do what the newer people do, you know, because that's more than likely better.
That's what I always think is such a terrible argument for flat earthers, when they say, like, oh, you know, some ancient civilizations used to say the earth was flat. And I'm just like, that is the worst argument ever, isn't it? Because you can just see how much everything has improved since then. So why wouldn't our understanding of the planet we live on? You know, it's ridiculous. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think apparently that the Egyptians believed in like a square earth, I think, like a flat square earth. And it was kind of like the sun at night would go through like some black hole kind of thing, like go into hell and have to fight its way like underneath earth, fight demons through the night, and obviously come out the next day and, you know, victorious from hell. And, you know, and you're kind of like, well, that's wrong. So, you know, people think obviously
like I suppose what we're doing then, and I mean, to a degree, it's still what we're doing now. We're just doing it now with far superior tools. But what they were doing at the time was they were taking the evidence they had right there and then to hand, and they were making the best guesses they could with that evidence. And technically, that's still what we're doing now. And that's why anybody that's, properly advocating for the scientific method will tell you that, I suppose the more common version is now that science doesn't prove things. Science provides evidence for things, but it doesn't prove them. And it's that same reasoning, because it's really, really difficult to say that for all cases, forever and always, eternity. It's really difficult to do that, because how do you prove that? You can't prove it, you can't really test it, and science needs stuff to be testable. So we tend not to talk about everything always and forever. Instead, what you do is you take examples and you try and disprove those examples. And if you can't disprove that specific example, then that one's probably good. And then you take other examples and you try and do those. And then as you start building up more and more specific examples that you can't disprove, then you start going, well, this is probably fairly accurate. Because, we've tried to disprove it in so many different ways. We failed every time to disprove it. So, chances are it's good. But we still hold a reservation that, but we could be wrong. And that's what's really important to science, is being able to say we could be wrong. Because then when somebody else comes along and says, you are wrong, instead of going, no, I'm not, you go, okay, why am I wrong? And if they can explain to you why you're wrong, and if their evidence makes sense, then you have to go, oh, okay, maybe I am. And I mean, again, if it's depending on the strength of the current belief on what it might be, you might require more evidence, or maybe that one instance might be sufficient to say, okay, it's wrong. That all depends on, how strong the evidence it was for it originally. But everything has to be open for scrutiny, and it doesn't matter who has said it. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're talking about like a neurosurgeon saying something about, about a human brain. I mean, if a neurosurgeon is talking about a human brain, chances are they know more than you. So chances are they're right. But that doesn't mean they are right. There's still a possibility that you could actually find something that they could actually be wrong about. But in that case, your work is really in front of you, because this is an expert in the field that's probably spent years and years studying it. So they know an awful lot more about it than you do. So usually in that situation, what you're gonna start saying is, well, okay, I think they're wrong, but I'm probably wrong. So how am I wrong? And then if you go through it for a good bit and you can't find a way that you're wrong, then maybe mention it to other people and see if they can find a way you're wrong. And if eventually kind of nobody can find a way you're wrong, then you start going, well, maybe the previous science was wrong and maybe I'm not.
Yeah. And that's what kind of annoys me with flat earthers in a way, is they make out that this whole like science is a religion and nobody's ever allowed to change anything. The flat earth is hidden. And it literally, if the earth was flat and someone could prove it or show the better evidence that, it's more likely that the earth is flat, that would then be what was taught, was accepted. People would try and prove it wrong. And if they couldn't, scientists would jump over themselves if they thought there was a chance to actually tell everyone's wrong. Einstein was wrong. Like, they would love to do that, but they can't.
If you could overturn a prevailing theory, I mean, there's many Nobel Prizes in your future. So like, absolutely, that is every scientist's goal, is like, oh my God, if I can overturn this thing and replace it with my better thing, that's your life made, So yeah, absolutely, that's everybody's goal, and it's cutthroat. Like, you find that when people start to get a decent knowledge on a topic from having spending years of studying it, sometimes they can get a little bit personal about it. And if somebody tries to point out where you're wrong and you're not, you're going to get quite not agitated, but you're going to really get your defenses up, and you're going to go back to your homework, and you're going to see, well, hang on, how can I show no, I'm not wrong? I've spent my life on this, and here's why. And the other person coming in is going to know that that's the case. So they're going to have to bring evidence, or else they're just going to get pushed back out and told, well, yeah, see, here's why you're not right, and away you go.
Yeah. That's what made me laugh, say, with Dell when he does his university activism. And I've said to him before, like, why don't you actually, politely maybe write to the university, try and see if you can speak to one of the lecturers there, or, somebody with real experience in physics, in astronomy and things like this. But he just picks on people that You know, they just because they go to university, that looks to flat earthers like, oh my God, like a smart person is being outwitted by Dell, because they just think, you know, and you know, most people that go to university are smart, but mainly in obviously different areas and subjects. And he's catching people out that might be an art student or something, or you know, they've got no idea about Earth, so they're just as likely to fall for something as someone else would be. You know, looks like, so that is the worst argument ever. I said to him, go to the professors, dude. Like, I'd have so much respect for him if he actually did that, but you know, I'm sure actually someone would talk to him if he asked nicely.
If he asked nicely, they would definitely, yeah. But that hits back to what I was kind of saying right at the start, where I was saying that, you know, there's a massive breadth to human knowledge currently. I mean, you know, we just, as a species, we know a huge amount of stuff. Like, it's massive, way too much for any one person to know. And as you correctly pointed out there, see, when somebody goes to university, you're specializing in university. That's what you do. You don't learn a very broad, generic, I'll know everything about everything in university, because that wouldn't work. There's too much to know. So when you go to university, you pick the very narrow field that you want to specialize in. And then at the start, you even get a small piece of that. And you work through a small piece of that. And even one of the things that flat earthers seem to be struggling with a little bit at the moment is, like, when they look at a model where it says, you know, we'll assume the Earth is flat for this calculation or whatever have you, and then they move on. Why a lot of that stuff is done in universities is because the topics that you're talking about are extremely complicated, and there's loads of variables. And it's really difficult to wrap your head around all those variables at once. So instead, what you do is you say, right, what we'll do is we'll say, here's this sum that has 10 potential variables, and I'm going to take 8 of them out. And I'm going to say, for now, let's ignore those 8, and we'll just pretend they don't exist. And we learn how the first 2 work. And then when we know how they work, then we'll go, and maybe in a couple of months' time, we'll add in 2 more. And we'll show you that everything we taught you was kind of right, but it needed to be more specific. And now with these 2 other variables, now it's a little more specific. And then as you learn that, you go, all right, okay, now I know a little bit better. And then they'll say, right, now that we've taught you that, and then they'll keep going and they'll keep piling that in. And the idea is that, again, it's just so difficult to take it all in at once. There's too much stuff to misunderstand. So instead, what they do is you get it in small chunks. And again, that's why you get, you know, models where you ignore certain parts of things, or like you get idealized models, are a thing that's done quite often, is where you just say, well, you know, in an ideal situation, this is how this would happen. And that's so that the maths can be worked out and understood. And then after you get to that point, then you can start introducing, well, these are the variables then to take it away from this idealized situation.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you say, you're going through so much, aren't you? You know, that is incredible. You know, I've got such respect for people that do become experts in fields and things, and you know, generally they seem to understand, like, the more that they learn, you know, from what I've learned is, you know how much you don't know as well, if you know what I mean. You know, a lot of, you know, I'm not saying everyone's humble, but kind of seems that most people that are quite, you know, they've got an expertise in a certain area will not downplay what they know, but at least, you know, it seems to me they'll accept that they can't and will never know everything, you know, and that is kind of, you know, is that the meaning of life? Have I just discovered it? Like, you know, we just can't know everything.
Well, as long as it's 42. But that's we say something like that. When you're talking about we'd say that's Dunning-Kruger, like that is the idea of the Dunning-Kruger. And like, I can give you an example of where I've experienced that firsthand for myself, about myself. And that would have been when I was younger. I used to play around putting, you know, car stereos into cars and stuff like that, and wiring up speakers and this, that, and the other. And, you know, I managed to do all of that, and, you know, I got stereo systems up and running and some decent quality sound ones and stuff like that as well. And then I thought, oh yeah, I understand this. I know how electricity works. Like, it's pretty easy. It's just, you know, you connect things up, electricity flows and stuff happens. And I thought, hey, you know, I have a pretty good understanding of electricity. And then I went to college to do electronic engineering, and I realized I know nothing about electricity. And I had to very quickly learn how much of electricity, or how much there is to know about it, and really how in depth you can get. And then you start realizing, okay, I know nothing. And then, like that, I very quickly sloped down the Dunning-Kruger curve, where I had to very quickly realize I don't know anything about electricity. And then slowly, through years of college, I started to make my way back up again, where Where now I think I know lots about it, but it's still less than I used to think I know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's so true. Well, I say so true. I don't know, but like, I see exactly what you say there, dude. We've got who's in the chat. We've got SE Montreal actually as an example of Dunning-Kruger. When he's saying like, you know, of course there's like space out there, but it's definitely not what we think it is. And you know, like, how do you know? Like, how do you know it's definitely not what we think it is? But at least you admit to there being a space, which is good, because you can literally see it with your own eyes. Yeah, we have reached around 50 minutes actually on the chat, guys. So if anyone does want to jump in on the stream, there is a link in the description. We're going to carry on for probably around another 45 minutes, and then you never know what happens. You just never know on this stream. Sometimes they end up as like 3.5 hours, but I'm not promising that tonight, guys, but you never know. No, I'm only joking. Only joking. One person I would like to join if he's free actually would be FE Peer Review, because I noticed his last sort of couple of videos, and he has been commenting on about something. At the minute, I heard him state that he is an atheist, and I know and believe that he was also in the past Christian. But I saw him mention something, I wrote it down. I'm sure Dave has probably heard of it before. Advaita Vedanta. Have you ever heard of that? I might just be pronouncing it really wrong. I think it's spelled, if you want to quickly look it up, Advaita Vedanta, I believe. And he did also go along those sort of belief paths, shall we say. But as far as I could notice, seems to be picking up a little bit of steam as such. But I know that he would know a lot more about that subject than I would. So that's basically what I mean there, FE Peer Review. So if you did want to come on and have a chat, because I know that you said that you had a previous kind of belief in your 20s, I think you said, mate. I mean, it'd just be interesting to kind of understand and know more about kind of what you meant, mate. FE Peer Review, trying to sign in. Oh, hello, mate. Yep, I can see you. I'm about to add you to the stream now, mate. How's it going, buddy?
Hello. Doing great, STSD. Nice to see you. Hi, Deadly Dave. Nice to see you too. Don't I look lovely, mate, in my bathrobe and my unshaved?
I actually had mine on beforehand, actually, and I was like, oh, I nearly started my stream and I had my hood up and everything. I was like, oh, I'm going to try and look a bit, you know, more presentable. Then I realised I looked like a vicar. So I'm now going to do it as
like a vicar.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, mate, that's really good to see you, mate. You've been a long time sort of supporter of the channel, so big respect to you, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been with you from the start, and I'm going to be with you to the end.
Oh, mate. Yeah. Well, yeah. And is there going to be an afterlife or not? That is the question. Obviously,
we'll find out.
You know, well, we'll find out one way or the other, won't we?
Or we won't.
Yeah. It's going to be. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Obviously, if there isn't an afterlife, we won't know, because I think we've got another guest actually as well. Sorry, mate. Carry on for a second.
Do you remember the 11 characteristics of pseudoscience? And the first one being unfalsifiable.
Yeah.
Afterlife, unfalsifiable.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, very true.
I just wanted to pipe in one thing Deadly Dave was saying about Dunning-Kruger, and it's so true that in my own experience with studying structural engineering, also specialties, it's like we've learned so much that no one person can keep it all in their head, you know? And so it's like in structural engineering, you've got people that can tell you everything there is to know about concrete, and they know nothing about structural steel. And then there's the other person who knows everything about structural steel, couldn't tell you a thing about concrete, right? I mean, that's how focused it all gets, and it has to. It's kind of a dilemma. It has to get focused in order for each of these things to advance. But at the same time, the more focused it gets, the more narrow we individually become in our own understanding. And we're not encouraged to try to, and we need to find ways to connect knowledge across disciplines in order really to get the most benefits. And that's where I think a lot of us struggle. My nephew recently became a medical doctor. And it's the same thing in medicine. You know, the advances in each area of medicine are amazing. But one of the things they struggle with is that they're not able to make the connections between disciplines.
Yeah.
Because there are no practical reasons to create the bridges. They don't need a person in the hospital that can connect this discipline to that discipline. They need a specialist here. They need a specialist there to help a patient. There's no patient that needs the connection, but medicine needs the connection. So how do you do that? You know?
Yes.
Well,
yeah, that's very true.
I've seen a few things recently that I think are I mean, it's small, it's reasonably entertaining. And on YouTube, I've seen a couple of the reasonably, I suppose, what I would call decent science educators having, you know, kind of open debates on, you know, certain phenomenon. And it's often from different fields. So you might have like as you said, a structural engineer and an electronic engineer or something, and both trying to describe a phenomena, and then they're releasing videos, you know, with arguments and counter arguments, and it's going over and back for a couple of videos at least. And I think that's actually very interesting to see, and I think that could help with some of this, because then what you're getting is potentially the followers from one channel are all possibly, we'll say, structural engineers, and then the other channel are all possibly electronic engineers, or, you know, somewhat biased that way. And then when they have these discussions, then you get an interaction of the two chats, and that can really kind of open you up, I think, to different things. Because I think, like, if you've already been trained as an engineer, yes, you've definitely specialized, and there's lots of stuff you don't know about. But what you have learned is, we'll say, how to think like an engineer, or at least I hope you've learned that. And I think then it can be easy to assimilate new engineering style information, because it's kind of like it's just more of the same, but you just have to you just have to get there and be exposed to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
that is
one of the values, I think, because there may not be like any direct economic benefit to making these bridges, to getting people to study across disciplines and become bridges between ideas. I think that's one of the reasons why organizations like NASA are so useful, because NASA until recently really had an economic need to be a profit making endeavor. It was totally government funded 100%, and its purpose was to get people out to space. You know, back in the 1960s when Kennedy started it, it was you know, propaganda against the Soviet Union to get America out into space. And you know, money be damned, it didn't matter how much was spent. And it wasn't in order to turn a profit for the next quarter so that the shareholders are happy, you know. So they could explore a whole lot of technology for which there didn't appear to be any immediate economic benefit, because the benefits were elsewhere. And that's the value of an organization like that, that's not dependent on having to turn a profit.
Well, you can see the evidence of profit causing problems elsewhere as well. When we look at the likes of the COVID vaccine, when money wasn't an issue, it got done pretty quick. And, you know, to anybody that thinks money was an issue, no, it wasn't. Every government just was going, here, do what you can, fix it, have what you need. So everything just had money fired at it. And then quite quickly, a lot of very, very good work was done. And it's amazing how, you know, as you said, like that, it was just every idea is on the table. You know, we'll try everything. We'll throw money at everything, rather than when you were making a for-profit business that has to go, okay, well, there's these 6 ideas, and, you know, only 2 of them are really very strong. The others are plausible, but not definite. So we're just going to discard them. And they get discarded so quickly and so easily. But in a situation like we had with the needing to create a vaccine, it was like, no, everything's on the table. We're going to try it all. We know a load of it's going to fail, but it doesn't matter. Just keep firing the money at it. Something will work.
Yeah. That is it, isn't it? And it does, like you say, it comes down to money, basically, especially, I think, with research, it's what all kind of scientists need, is the funds to be able to do what they sometimes, they want to do. So they're trying to get money and things. But obviously this time it was just, please do this, wasn't it? So of course everyone's going to do what they can to help advance the vaccine. It is as simple as that. Yeah. Have we got sorry, there was a guy earlier. Sorry, Effie, mate. Mystery Master did attempt to join the stream. I missed you, mate. I'm sorry, but if you feel free, obviously, if you want to jump on again. I completely missed you there. If you haven't already, guys, just tickle that like for me, please. That would be amazing. That would be quality. What do you guys think? I know we did. Yes, do it. What do you think about acupuncture, FE peer review? Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, I've never used it. I've never had it. I've had a few family members that have. I have a sister who is involved in the medical field who won't give it the time of day. I have another sister who has used it, and my mother had used it, and they both seem to experience some kind of mild relief from it. I don't know whether it's, what do they call that effect?
Placebo.
Placebo.
Or whether there is some kind of temporary thing happening. I doubt that there's anything major. If there's something happening, if there's some kind of electrical stimulation to nerves that it can cause, there might have a short-term effect. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I mean, you stick needles in something, you're probably gonna, it's probably gonna react. People stuck needles in me, but I don't see that there's a whole lot of evidence to support anything behind it.
I have a couple of papers here actually as well, that basically all conclude with kind of there's no evidence that it works. And again, like I was saying earlier, science doesn't say it proves it doesn't work, because that's not how it works. Instead, what they're saying is any of the papers presented to show evidence that it does work don't conclude that it does work. So we don't have those conclusions. And what they come across is sometimes they say there is actually sometimes a slight benefit, but that benefit that comes across from it is no more than the placebo effect and happens no more often than chance and in placebo circumstances. They also said that with acupuncture, it's really, really difficult to double-blind test it, because how do you tell somebody you're stabbing them with needles or not stabbing them with needles and do that? And then also, how do you tell the person that's doing the stabbing whether they're actually doing that or not doing that? So it's really, really difficult to actually double-blind test it at all. So it's really difficult to remove that placebo effect out of it. And any of the studies they have done, they've found that there's no particular places that so there's different groups of acupuncturists have decided that there's different chi points or different points in the body where you have to put the needles, and there is no evidence anywhere of any one of those methods being any more useful than the others. So that means then that, well, if it doesn't matter whether I put it here or here, then is it doing anything? And then they came across a couple of studies that said that actually just pay attention to and kind of caressing or rubbing the skin can actually cause a slight there was a release of a chemical, I've forgotten the name of the chemical now, but a slight endorphin like chemical in the system, which then kind of gives you that kind of bit of feel good around it. And they were saying that just basically with the acupuncture you're providing that. Now it might not necessarily be an enjoyable thing, but you're providing this other stimulation which then distracts your brain at the same time as your brain releasing endorphins. So it's releasing endorphins to fight the pain, and then at the same time there's this other thing that's a distraction. So as an effect, you end up getting basically what they reckon is that the acupuncture is possibly one of the best placebo effects you can get, because it's so interactive. There's so many points it hits. You have the belief of it, as well as the belief of it. You have the actual sensation of something physically being done to you. And then you have the actual physical body response to something being done to you as well. So there's so many little factors in there that can really play a part. And as a result, it ends up being a very, very, very strong placebo, but there is no evidence that it's anything more than that.
I mean, placebo is such a strange thing, isn't it? It does show you just the power of the human mind. You know, it is, like we say, it's probably not going to be healing your body long term, but especially say for short term things, I think, you know, the power of the mind just seems incredible for what it can produce with placebo. You know, I did see a television program once about acupuncture, and obviously it wasn't a very scientific test, but basically what they did was obviously gave one set of people, you know, physical acupuncture, and then the next time they just had like toothpicks, and there was someone sort of behind them, obviously, and they never actually broke the skin or anything, but just kind of pressed down on them in certain areas with toothpicks. And you know, they literally both had more or less exactly the same results. You know, some type of benefit, short-term placebo, you know, but yeah, and one was literally just like toothpicks.
To do the testing on that, they actually came up with a particular needle. I don't know if I still have the link to it now, but a needle that basically looks like it's being pushed into you, even when it isn't, to try and again actually double-blind these studies. But then where they're still getting stuck is the person putting a needle into you still knows about it. So they're finding it difficult to remove that side of it. But yeah, so toothpick being one idea, and then they took it a bit further and they tried to make needles that look like they're actually being inserted into you to try and give you that feeling.
You know, I think one of the reasons why a lot of very dubious medical stuff gets popularized, stuff that really has no real benefit, is that I think there is a lot of just like with NASA and space industry, there's a lot of economic driving force behind what kind of medical research gets done and what kind just gets neglected. I don't mean it's any kind of a conspiracy. It's just that there are some avenues of research that are going to more likely lead to profit and others that aren't. And so an industry that kind of neglects some avenues of research, it's like leaving a door open for the conspiracists to walk in. You know, it's leaving your left flank exposed in the battlefield there, you know, and even if it's not profitable to pursue this other area of research, because it's not going to result in the patented medicine you can sell, it should still be checked. It should still be researched. And then again, that's where, you know, maybe there's a need for the CDC and NASA to do that kind of research, because they're not dependent on turning a profit for their shareholders. So, you know, like when I was younger, I was very athletic and in doing a lot of physical stuff. And I had access. I was lucky to have access to some really great physical therapists, some really good massage therapists, and I got a lot of benefit from simple massage. Tremendous amount of benefit. And that's an example where I see people who I know, I can just tell by looking at them, and they tell me how they're feeling, that really all they need is like 3 months of twice a week massage and they'd be fine. But too often, what they get instead is a prescription for painkillers, you know, pills that cost money.
Yeah.
And because there's good medical evidence that those pills are going to make them feel better, but they don't need that necessarily. Some people need it. Unquestionably, some people need those pills. But there just isn't a whole lot of money to be made off of, you know, massage. So it gets neglected it gets neglected in the medical education, just like nutrition tends to get neglected in the medical education. My nephew, who's a doctor now, he pushed hard when he was at medical school to get the university to bring in experts on nutrition because he knew that was something he was interested in, and it wasn't a part of the curriculum. It was like one class that was optional, you know. So that's a problem that does exist, and
yeah, I mean, there's not enough said by the governments, I think, and you know, even when COVID first hit, you know, about staying healthy and, you know, you know, I say that as I sit and drink a cider, but to have your body in like a better optimum state if you did catch COVID, and you know, there could have been done more. You know, they shouldn't just come out and jump and start saying, oh, everyone needs to be healthy, but like there needs to be done by them to try and keep people healthy, I think, you know. You know, I am actually all for cigarettes to be completely banned, and I smoke, if you know what I mean, because I think that's the only thing that's going to stop me. Is like, if it's that bad, ban it, if you know what I mean, and just don't allow the legal, you know, selling of tobacco. I would actually support that, you know, and that's coming from a smoker, because I just think, like, you know, don't allow these, you know, maybe I'm just making excuses.
But I would actually feel the opposite to you on that. Like, for argument's sake, even when it comes to the COVID stuff, yeah, okay, the government could have said more. I'm not going to disagree with you on that, but I don't think that's fundamentally the root of the problem. And I think what we need to do is we need to recognize we need to teach people better. We need to educate them better from a young age. We're currently not super good at education, and we kind of teach some of the wrong things, because again, society has moved on so fast because technology is stupid quick. Like, I mean, this is not a phenomenon we're used to. Technology just moves stupid quick. And as a result, how you taught people 30 years ago might have been perfectly valid 30 years ago. It's not now. It's no longer valid. Getting people to memorize stuff now, for instance, isn't really very smart, because you don't need to memorize stuff. The internet exists. What you need to know is how to critically examine something on the internet and pull the right information from it. That's a much more useful skill than learning to memorize something. So we need to, you know, change how we teach people, and we need to really, really focus on critical thinking, because like, I think, to get back to your problem earlier on about, you know, our specializing in different fields. Again, if we were taught better from a young age how to think critically and how to properly examine the evidence, when somebody sent you off on a rabbit hole or down a rabbit hole the wrong way, you're going to quickly recognize that's what's happening to you, because you've been armed with these proper critical thinking skills. And it's something that's definitely lacking at the moment. And even just a shift from attitude, where currently, if somebody says something to you, like, let's say you told me a story, and if I heard your story and I went, no, I don't believe you, even at the moment, you're going to be taken back for a second, and you're going to be a little bit offended. Why didn't David believe me? I'm his friend. Why didn't he believe me? And it's nothing to do with that. It's just the fact that, and I'm not even questioning you, what I'm saying is that currently, towards whatever stuff is already in my brain, something's not gelling. And I just want a bit more information before I take it in. And that's all you're really expressing. You're just saying, I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying right now I don't agree with you yet. So can I get a little bit more first? And we need to shift away from that being a bad thing, or that being that you're somehow offending the person. That's not what you're doing. You're just saying, hold on, before I take this on board, I need a little bit more.
I know exactly what you mean. It reminds me of something I do with my missus sometimes, and I try to stop doing it now. But if ever there's like, we have like this little disagreement about, you know, such a minor thing, or she might tell me something, and I'm just like, that's not real. Like, and I'll instantly start Googling away and whatever. And she's like, can I not just, you know, tell you something and you not have to try and disprove me wrong? And I'm just like, oh, you know, I'm so sorry. Like, it's just, you know, but I do, you know, I curb that a lot now and just think, do you know what? I'll let her have her moment. But, you know, I know
there are times when that's wise. There's nothing more annoying than being constantly corrected in the middle of a sentence when it's some tiny little thing that, you know, you're just using a little bit of poetic license, and this other person's like, well, no, actually, that's not the, oh my God, I don't want to hear it. I don't need another grammar lesson, you know.
I'm sorry then, because I do that so often, so I do apologize.
It's all about balance. It's all about balance. Human relationships are tricky.
Yeah, I mean that is it, isn't it? If everyone just agreed on everything, life would be so boring, wouldn't it? We've all got to have different opinions. Um, it just makes life a lot more fun. I noticed we've got quite a few flat earthers and anti-vaxxers and things in the chat, so feel free, anybody, to jump in on the live stream. I don't know if that's too far back, but I did notice a comment from Domesticated Primate, the classic, do your own research.
I'm not going to do anybody else's.
Yeah, kind of.
Well,
Yeah,
the first
but I
thing
mean,
the first thing everybody doing their own research should research is how to do research, because most people don't know what research is.
Yeah.
yeah.
I also don't think there's any point in like trying to rediscover fire and getting burned along the way, because that was taken care of a long time ago. We can move on now. We can just go over to the stove and turn the button and turn the knob and the fire goes on. We don't have to worry about it anymore. So sometimes maybe it's not necessary.
That's so true. That's so true. FE peer review, actually, I wanted to ask you about this. Oh no, Dave, mate, you went to say something there. Did you have a?
No, go for it.
I'm going to do a complete subject change, so just in case there was something on the end of your tongue.
No, it's good.
Advaita Vedanta.
Advaita Vedanta, yeah. Dvai is the same word as two, the number two, Dvai in Sanskrit, and Advai means not two. And Advaita means it's not the number one, it's the idea of non-dual, no duality, oneness. And it's a stream of philosophy within Vedanta, which is the source of Hinduism, which goes back to like the earliest parts of Hindu religion's existence. And it's an idea of everything as one, like the universe is one being in a sense. That's generally what the meaning of an Advaita Vedanta is in the simplest way. Like I was reading a book a few months back. I've forgotten the title, but it was about trees. And in the book, they pointed out something that scientists only in the last, 10 or 20 years have figured out. There are these stands of, are they aspen trees? I think they're aspens, that to us, we see a forest of trees, but in fact, it's all one plant, and they're all connected through their root system as one giant organism. And so they're now considered to be the largest organisms in the world. A single organism can cover many acres. And to us, it looks like a forest, but in fact, it's one tree that comes up in a lot of places. So not only that, they're also the oldest creatures on the planet, the oldest living things on the planet, and they've found some that have existed for 100,000 years. And you ask, how can something like this exist for 100,000 years when there have been ice ages? And they actually move. As the climatic conditions of an ice advancing on one side of the forest, the trees, the parts of the tree that are coming up on that side die off, and new parts are coming up on the south edge, and it's gradually moving southward over the course of hundreds of years. And then after hundreds of years, it gradually moves northward again. I mean, it's like this is an example of a level of oneness that we weren't aware of 50 years ago, in the world of biology. To us, it looked like a bunch of trees, and we saw a bunch of trees, and we'd go and study each tree. And it was kind of genetics that revealed that, in fact, it was all one identical single organism. So I'm off
just
on
kind
a
of cloning itself then, or is the tree just kind of cloning itself, do you think? Or
well, it's actually it's a single tree. It's got a continuous root system underground.
What?
With these things coming up out of the root. So you can cut it in half. You can go in there into the forest, and you can cut right down the middle and sever it into two, and it's now two separate organisms and they are not going to reconnect. But
Wow.
you've severed it. I mean, it was one thing physically.
Yeah.
Not in some sort of woo-woo way. It was one physical organism. In other words, if we were to poison part of it, that poison could potentially move through all of it, right?
Wow. That's incredible. So I
So
suppose, like you say, it would even probably pass nutrients and things, and if
yeah,
one area was, yeah, wow, that's amazing. It's a little bit like what I've learned recently about like mushrooms and the kind of like the underground network of
yeah.
their kind of root. They're not roots, but like I can't remember what they're called. But I saw a guy grew. What is it? Sorry,
Is it mycelium?
mycelium. Yes, and a guy grew one on a glass bowl, and then obviously kind of like just watch these things coming down around the glass bowl, and but yeah, they do cover forests apparently, and
Yeah.
they interact with trees, so they'll pass nutrients. The tree will feed it in certain respects,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it is incredible, isn't it? Like the nature like that. So do you think that could be confused, or not confused, but say obviously it's kind of ancient wisdom, and then do you think people nowadays are trying to correlate it to like you say, the oneness of noticing like how these kind of
Yeah.
super organisms exist? I nearly said the other word. Organisms exist.
I do think there is a connection. I mean, I do think there is a connection in that I think that we've always been, it's our nature as a species, we've always been incredibly curious in trying to understand the world beyond even what we need to understand just to survive. And I think that we have maybe kind of grasped some things intuitively at times in the past without the tools, the mental tools and the technological tools that we have today of science. We've been able to kind of like intuitively grasp some things, but in the process, we've got to kind of not a full story. Like we intuit a piece of it without understanding it necessarily, and then it can easily end up going off on a mistaken tangent at that point. Whereas
is that just a case though of bias is basically taking hold, where we thought lots of things in the past, the things that were crap we've forgotten about, and the things that can somehow be somewhat related to what we know now, we've just gone, see, we knew that in the past, but did we?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, we might have. I mean, I guess what I'm thinking is that we might have just sort of stumbled on some things that were correct, without necessarily really. We didn't have the discipline, the disciplined approach of science that we have now, which is like systematic. We didn't have that in our minds at that time. Doesn't mean that we weren't stumbling onto some correct understandings, even if we got there through odd routes. But because we didn't have that discipline, we could also easily draw mistaken conclusions from some of the correct information we gathered.
Which not only has been done, but it will continue to be done.
Yeah.
And we can just do our best to narrow it and continue to augment our understanding and reduce what we don't understand. But yeah, we will we're probably making, like, as we try and venture into the quantum world, we're probably making a whole pile of absolutely arse backwards assertions, and some of them, as you pointed out, are probably even correct, but we've no idea why or how yet. And as we progress and as we learn more, we'll go, okay, turns out this was correct, and it was correct because of this, this, and this. But right now we're just kind of going, yeah, it kind of looks like it works. And yeah, absolutely. And, as we venture into that new area, we will we will eventually start as children and work our way towards growing up in it.
Yeah. I think
there are still so many. Sorry, mate, you carry on.
I think the idea, the words came to my mind as you were just talking, Dave, that what we have now that we didn't have earlier was a kind of philosophy of science, where we will definitely continue to make mistakes, but we're kind of more systematic, conscious and systematic. So we'll also maybe be less likely to make the same kind of mistakes, because we will say, hey, we know about that potential danger. So we're not, we've accommodated that in our system. We're more conscious of the process, and so we're using the process more efficiently.
Yeah, as we build better tools, we can use those tools to build even better tools.
Yeah, and part of the tools involve how we think as well, not just technology, but our own thought process, our own more disciplined thought process, checks and balances, peer review. That's stuff that didn't exist in India 3,000 years ago. Even if they did get something right, they didn't have a peer review network and journals. But you wanted me to say a little bit more about Advaita Vedanta, and I'll just add one more little thing, and then you can carry on with whatever direction you want the conversation to go. And that's that when I was in my teens and late teens and early 20s, and looking at a lot of different ideas in the world, and did spend quite a bit of time exploring that, what I found was that it was quite uniquely different than all the other philosophies I had been exposed to. I spent a couple of years at a Jesuit university studying comparative religion and philosophy. And I also read pretty much, all the important religious books, like, of course, the Old and New Testament, the Book of Mormon, about a third of the Quran. I read the Tao Te Ching and a lot of myths, the Nibelungenlied, which is the German myths, the Arthurian legends. I read all of it. Wonderful reading. All of it's fantastic reading. It's great entertainment. Although I still think that the Lord of the Rings is a lot more entertaining than the Old Testament. But
I'm with you there.
If I had to choose, I'd choose Lord of the Rings.
That's what I.
But what I ran across in Advaita Vedanta that struck me, because it was so different than all these others, was this idea that it's not a monotheistic worldview. It's not really even a theistic worldview. It's the word I came up with, and it turns out other people have come up with the same word, was monistic. That there's only one, and everything that exists is simply this one thing exploring all of its potential in every possible direction. That's what the universe is. It's like that forest of trees that looked to us at one time like a bunch of trees, and now we actually see that it's not a bunch of trees. It's a single organism that in some respects, and science seems to be so often the natural sciences. All my life I've watched the natural sciences move in this direction, that we are finding more and more connections between things that we didn't know existed, more and more interdependencies between things and influences of things.
Perhaps that's what dark matter could be, or something like that, or dark energy, or
I don't know. It could be. I've mostly been aware of it in the realm of environmentalism, in that throughout the course of my lifespan, we seem to have found every time we look closer, we find more connections. Things don't get farther apart and more separated. They get more connected and more interdependent. We find more and more ways that we are so much like other animals, and other animals are so much more like us. In the way the brains function, we see that so much of our emotional experiences and dreams and all of this, all the other mammals have dreams. They all love and they all fear and they all, develop social relationships of different kinds between species as well as within species. So that's what I've been seeing, is that it seems like natural sciences are gradually bringing more and more things together, and it's becoming more and more like a single being. So it's some sort of conceptual level. That sounds very woo the more I say it, but in some way it seems like science is moving in the same direction that we kind of intuited in the past, which is that that there is like life. It makes more sense to talk about life than living things. No.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like the idea and the kind of concept of it, and I don't know. I mean, it is fascinating, isn't it? And I loved how you were sort of explaining it, and then your mind just sort of went, "That sounded really woo." Do you know what I mean? Like a kind of, I don't know why, but that kind of moment stuck out. But like you say, how long did you kind of follow that for then? I mean, and then what made you kind of then think, actually, you know, atheism, and what was that trigger point?
You know, I think that's why I would probably, the main reason I'm fine with calling myself atheist is because I think that we've basically never been able to conceive of any sort of like overarching supreme being that wasn't in some way an improved human being. We never seem to be able to get beyond ourselves. And I'm convinced that that's thoroughly and completely wrong. that there's no possible way we can conceive of such a thing, because whenever we try, we end up with a big daddy or a big mommy, or and it's like, so just forget that, if there is only one, if everything is one, then whatever it is way beyond what a human can possibly conceive of. So what's the point?
Or it isn't. I mean, it could just be that the one big thing is just the universe. It's just happening. Determinism. Like, I mean, again, we're not really too familiar with what happened in the very, very early nanoseconds or picoseconds. I'm not sure, it might even be smaller than that, of time after the Big Bang. But, once that starts playing out a bit, then we know, with some sort of degree of confidence, what happened after that point. And atoms and stuff started forming and then crashing into each other and then forming new things as they crashed into each other. And that's just continued to happen. And it's still happening now. And it's going to continue happening until everything spreads out and goes old.
Is there, I mean, this is a very naive question for me, but I just thought of it really. But obviously we know that the universe is huge, beyond our comprehension. And obviously there is this kind of singularity, I think it's called. But was there any, see, the word space is going to sound wrong, because I don't mean the kind of space as we know it, but
another question you're asking,
was there area for it to, was the area that space filled already there?
That's so
basically what you're talking about is, at that point, everything that was crushed into that point was the universe. So space is also in that point. So there was nothing for it to expand into. There was nothing outside of it. Everything is the universe. The universe is everything. It's this point. So there's nothing outside that. What happened was it was all really dense, and then it starts to spread out. And now we're in here somewhere in the middle of the spreading out. And that's all that's happened, is it's just spreading out. And as it spreads out, we end up in it being spread out with it. And as it continues to spread out, that's basically what the heat death of the universe is. It will continue to spread. And as things continue to happen, they continue to release heat as a byproduct. That heat will eventually become, radiate away to nothingness, and then everything stops.
There's a video I need to watch, which I haven't seen yet, you probably both know of Sabine Hussenfelder. She does a lot of videos on YouTube that are very interesting science videos. Because what Dave is saying is that I feel like that idea, that whole idea of space and time, or space-time, this is way beyond me, but that's kind of the point. It's way beyond all of us. I think that at some level,
So true.
by existing inside of it, we can't really even properly conceive of what it is. Because like Dave is talking about spreading out, and we cannot but help to think of spreading out, meaning occupying something. It's filling a space, and it's not filling a space. And I know that Sabine has done a video on this that I have not yet seen yet. And I need to go. I'm going to go watch it now because I've been meaning to for a few weeks.
I think I'm going to after this stream.
The universe is not expanding into anything. And yet at the same time, the universe is expanding. And this is like something I can't grasp it. It's beyond my, I can't intuitively understand how that can be. And this kind of gets back to the limitations of the fact that we're limited. We are human beings. We evolved under a limited set of environmental conditions. And we evolved to thrive in that little bubble of environmental conditions, and we're really good at that. And this is stuff that we never evolved, we never needed to know in order to survive. So we never really evolved the means to understand how the universe can be expanding, but not be expanding into something else.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose like as humans, we evolution really was to survive, I suppose, wasn't it? Literally, like is survive and
that's
reproduce.
All evolution
like
is survival.
Yeah, well, I mean, but like
that's
now.
it.
Yeah, I mean, but now, say most of society. I know, obviously, there's still people that are, terribly unfortunate, but survival for most of us now isn't, it's just going to work maybe, and but there's no actual like life or death.
But that's the definition of fittest now. So that's kind of how it works. When we talk about survival of the fittest, we don't mean the strongest or the quickest runner or the best fighter or anything like that. That's not what fittest means. Fittest just means in that situation, which organism is most likely to have its offspring survive, and that's all fittest means. So if you're more likely to have your offspring survive by, I don't know, just kind of, I can't even think of any absurd examples, but whatever the example might be, if that thing that happens is what makes your offspring more likely to survive, then that's the fittest that you are that's surviving. Because that's the thing. I mean, like evolution, as a lot of people think, isn't stuff changing. It's not really what's happening. What's happening is the new generation is a slight bit different than the old generation. And then the whole new generation is that. And then it keeps going down. So it's not like one thing changes to another thing. It's just gradually over time, things change. And what happens is things split and they change differently. And then you get, one organism, and then a different organism is different because it has just met different environmental conditions. So what it needed to do to survive was different than what the other thing needed to do to survive. So then they do different things, they become different things, and then their offspring further down the line are different. And then that keeps happening, they keep splitting, they keep changing, and then you end up getting the entire diversity of life we have on the planet now.
Have you two seen the movie Idiocracy?
I love it. I love that movie.
Craig, you got to see it. And I'm just thinking about the first 5 minutes or so. The opening scene of that movie is all about what is it that survives. What survives? And it's just a little like a 5-minute introduction to the main part of the movie, and it follows two couples. And one of them, they're like totally, their lives are a mess. They're a mess. They're slobs. But they're having babies. They're having lots and lots of babies because they don't do anything to prevent themselves from having lots and lots of babies. And totally uneducated, but having babies. And then there's this other couple that's very professional and very organized, and their lives are on track, and their retirement accounts are well funded, and they don't want to have a baby until they're absolutely 100% sure that they'll be able to support, fund that baby's college, enough money in that baby's college fund. And then by the end of it, they never have a baby. And so you carry that forward a few generations, and then that's when the movie starts. when
Brilliant.
Okay. Yes. That's so
you
true.
gotta check it out.
Yeah. But actually, that probably, I'm going to sound such a broad generalization, but there is you're less likely to have children if you have a decent-ish career, really, aren't you? Like, or have a less amount of children, should I say? So yeah, I mean, maybe. But then
that's the exact point
who
of that intro to that
survives?
movie.
Yeah, who
Like
survives out of the? Yeah, I mean, I'm going to sound really callous now, but like just to the point. But like, who survives though out of the 8 children from a underprivileged family, or the 3 from a privileged family, or 2, or do you know what I mean? There's obviously a lot of kind of variables there, isn't there, and
Of
things that
course, but
will affect our futures.
yeah, and I mean that's why, as much as possible, what I try and advocate for is not trying to fight people on their positions on certain things. I mean, obviously, I do that anyway, but more so to find the base point and to educate from there. To find the early point where we need to, again, as I mentioned earlier, critical thinking, and be able to actually just in general act or react better to situations, to learn how to take a piece of information and get the right information out of it. And the better we can teach people to do that, then hopefully we can take away the kind of bias that we have in society at the moment, which is where it tends to be wealthier people can be better educated. And that's not a great place to be. I mean, it would be much better if we could be in a society where, okay, wealthy, maybe that's a thing, maybe that's not a thing. I'm not too, we'll say, sold on either side of that. But regardless of whether, you have that thing there, what you need is that everybody can avail of the education. I mean, if you want to choose not to, that's your own business. But we need to be in a situation where everyone is capable of being educated, and we need to have that not affected by economic means. And if you can do that, then we kind of take away that, and I know it's only a meme idea, but that meme idea from Idiocracy, which is where the less affluent people are the people that produce more children. Well, in that situation, it won't matter, because those children can still be educated. So not being affluent doesn't mean you're dumb. And currently at the moment, and I know it's a kind of meme, but less affluent meaning you're dumb doesn't mean that you're dumb. All it unfortunately means is less affluent means you had less access to education. So you haven't had the opportunity to be able to make yourself up to the same level as people that have had that opportunity. So it's not necessarily your fault or anybody else's fault. It's just when we have a society where education isn't available to everyone, the more affluent people tend to have greater access to education, and then that only compounds the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally natural thing that parents want to get the best that they possibly can for their children, and the wealthy have more resources available to achieve that goal. So the wealthy will always have an advantage. It's inevitable, as long as there are differences in economics, and I don't advocate communism. The wealthy will have a advantage always. So what we've got to try to do is make sure that at the opposite end of the spectrum, people aren't so disadvantaged that they can't get going. They've got to be able to get going with their lives.
Well, I think a lot of the problems that we have do kind of revolve around the fact that resources are limited. And I don't mean all resources, because obviously if we're talking about all resources, of course they're limited. There's nothing we can do there. But we could, we've seen what technology has done for us so far, even though there's so many more people on the planet. There's a massively greater number now than there was 200-300 years ago. I think it's 4 times the size since it was only 200 or 300 years ago. So the population has absolutely exploded. Yet, and I know there's always talk about we are running out of food, but we didn't run out of food when we exploded to that size. And excuse me, that's because as well as our population increasing, so was our technology, and we were increasing the ability for everybody to have stuff. And okay, wealth might have been changing hands, but in general, again, I suppose Western biased here, so I apologize for that, but you're looking at kind of where at least Western societies were all managing to benefit from this kind of, increasing technology or scientific understanding. And I think if we can continue to work on that, I think we might be able to get to a place where, let's call them basic resources, aren't limited anymore. And if you can get to a point where your basic human needs are no longer limited, then the whole paradigm of what it means to be affluent or not kind of shifts, because now the people that maybe don't want it, it's fine to not want it. You know, I have enough to survive anyway, so I don't care if I'm rich or not. It doesn't matter. But, you know, you have the kind of saying that at the moment, what's it like, your money doesn't bring happiness, but lack of money definitely brings sadness. And it's kind of a hard place to be, because, you know, over a certain amount of money, it's not really important. Then you get into a whole different game of, you know, wealth rather than money. But then below a certain level, you have, you know, fighting to survive, you know, and it's not even about money at that stage. It's, I need to keep me alive. And you get into a situation again when we have these limited resources, and when people end up having to spend a particular portion of their lives fighting to survive, they don't get to use that time to better educate themselves, to get themselves out of the problem where they're fighting to survive. So yeah, I just think that if we can use technology to make resources more available to everyone, or the base resources available to everyone, I think that will help again with who's educated and who isn't.
Like you were saying earlier, with, you know, you think people need to be taught more critical thinking, and I mean, I honestly think the whole education system, especially, well, I can only speak for England, I suppose, but it really does need a bit of a shake up. It's, to me, it's just stuck in, you know, I only went to high school level, but so I can't talk about anything above that. But you know, it didn't inspire me. You know, I learned a little bit and things, but my friends were more interesting. You know, and I can't blame the teachers and things, but you know, there was definitely potential there with me, I think, but nobody grabbed me, you know. No, it isn't, you know, and I am slowly kind of learning. You know, I think I'm maybe at low A level levels at the minute or something like that, you know. But yeah, you know, you've got to get there before you can do a degree anyway. So yeah, I would love to. I might even start one in my 50s or something, you know. You can always do things, can't you? I would never ever rule it out.
But even if you're not looking for, sorry, after you.
CATS has been a great resource. Not, I mean, to a lot of us, but I'm thinking of you, Craig, that CATS has been a really great resource, and he's such a good communicator and educator. I think we're really lucky to have a guy like that in our circle, because he's somebody that can definitely give you, you know, a good push.
Yeah, and I kind of get, like, I suppose, free tutoring off him as well, really. You know, we still speak you know, a couple of times a month probably, but especially after I first came out of Flat Earth, more or less daily we spoke for a good few months, you know, and he just was checking up on me, making sure I was okay. And you know, when I was making a video, I'd go, look, dude, I really need to debunk this, but I've got no idea how to do it. Can you please tell me how to? And, you know, he'd literally send me like 10 minutes worth of voice messages and clips, and, you know, just trying to help me out. Oh, I'm going to sound like such a shill here now, ain't I, to all the flat earthers. But, I mean, oh, you only, but like, yeah, you know.
That's obviously what he did, though, because he's a teacher, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to share his knowledge. And to somebody that is a teacher, having somebody come to them and say, please teach me, that's a little bit like a drug. You know, it's like, oh, okay, sure, let's do it. Because you'd be surprised how often teachers end up facing most of the people just looking at them with blank stares going, is it time to leave yet? And that's not fun. So if you get somebody that's there saying, yeah, actually, I'd like to know some stuff, please help me. I mean, you're going to get them hook, line, and sinker. They're all in for helping at that point.
Yeah.
If you'll excuse me, I wanted to ask you, Craig, was there anything in particular that you wanted to ask me about that Advaita Vedanta, or did I basically answer, you know, your curiosity about it?
Well, one question I had was, is what led you to that was kind of like a search for an afterlife, because I think a lot of people that find religion do kind of seek or hope for something else after what we know of now. And I did, you know, when I kind of found Flat Earth, yeah, you know, my head suddenly went to, oh, we're a creation, we are the center of the universe. And you just hear yes, there's an afterlife, and people just take it, at face value, and just there isn't, to me, there is no evidence of an afterlife. I've had, say, maybe personal experiences. My mum died years and years ago, but say a few months after she died, I was laying there and I kind of felt like I could feel her, like, touching my cheek, if you know what I mean, as if she was actually there in the room with me, like comforting me. And so for a while, obviously, I also kind of felt like I really wanted to believe in the afterlife, to think that my mum was still somewhere living on. So yeah, when I found flat Earth, that kind of reignited that. And I've had this maybe personal experience, but now I just kind of think it was just maybe a lucid dream that I was having at the time, and I wasn't maybe as awake as I thought I was. And of course, I wanted my mum to be there, touching my cheek, but at the time, I took that as evidence that there is obviously life after death. And but yeah, that was a long drawn out question there, dude. But yeah, so kind of, was that your search, or are you comfortable with, is there an afterlife, isn't there?
I don't think that it was a major concern of mine at the time. I don't think it certainly wasn't central to my curiosity. Of course, when you're looking at all of those world religions and reading all the myths from all these different cultures, it's a subject that's, it is central in terms of the subject matter. But personally, I don't think it was a central concern of mine. I mean, I was also, like 17, 18, 19 years old, and at the age where you're going to live forever. So it's like, it's kind of irrelevant. You're never going to die. That's just for other people, So no, it wasn't really in that respect. I think that it's a very interesting thing, though, because like you talked about your mother, and I was very close to my grandmother, who died when I was 17. And I think maybe even to this day, although not as often, I have this intense feeling like she's sort of like over there watching me and just sort of like hanging around nearby. And an intellectual level, I'm completely convinced that she's not there. It's not a ghost, it's a creation of my own brain. It's probably in part due to the intensity of the closeness of my relationship with her when I was at a young age. Probably, put lots of memories inside there, and they're still inside there. And so there's a kind of an emotional intensity associated with them. It's a bit like a positive version of PTSD. You go out on the battlefield and you're traumatized by the sound of bombs, and then now you're living in a safe place, and the sound of somebody opening a wine bottle in the next house causes you nightmares. It's because the associations are there. So no, I think that it's a very interesting part of our brain that happens, but unfortunately, no, Grandma's not watching.
She's not. As you said, it's going to feel real in your brain, and of course it is. And quite often we get fooled, because when I say I touch something and I feel that thing, I think I'm feeling it with my hand. I'm not. I mean, my hand is doing the touching or the sensing, and depending on how semantic you want to get with the language, maybe I'm feeling it with my hand. But reality, what's happening is my brain is interpreting the information my hand has sent to me. And as an example, we know, for instance, with our eyes, there's a great bunch of veins running in front of the vision receptors in your eyes, and they sit kind of like this in your vision, and you don't see them because your brain goes, nah, that's not important, I'll not show that. And it literally it does its best to make the image from what it can see around. It stitches together the best version of the image it can, and then it just shows you that. And that's why you have a blind spot wherever that point is.
Your
because
brain
that's
does
the
fill
part.
in a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, and your brain just has to cut out a piece because it's like, oh yeah, no, that's not something you want to see,
Yeah.
and that's why you
And
have the
flip it
blind
over
spot.
as well.
And it has to flip it over too. That's a good point. It's actually
Yeah.
upside down too. So, like, even just from that point of view, my vision, I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, or my brain isn't telling me that I'm seeing what I'm seeing. What my eyes are actually seeing is one thing, and then my brain is saying, okay, I've got that, but now what I'm going to do is, based on what I know about Dave, I'm going to go and I'm going to change that into what Dave should see. And that's quite a scary concept, because, like, not only do we have the jokes when people talk about relying on your senses, and you talk about, how do people with glasses exist then, and that sort of stuff. So, but not only can you not rely on your senses, you can't rely on your memory. It's nonsense. Like, human memory is utterly terrible. You can't rely on your memory, and you can't really rely on your experiences either, because, like, even what I remember from yesterday is probably not a good picture of yesterday. It's probably not bad. It's much better than my picture of 10 years ago, but it's probably not exact. And that's why when you get a bunch of people to tell you the same story about the same thing that they were all there and experienced, you get 10 different stories, because your brain sees and touches and feels things, but then processes that and turns that information that you can observe or you can utilize. And the problem is that by the time you're doing that, it's not exactly right anymore.
Yeah. Like I say, I think the brain does fill in a lot. I've had times where, like you're saying, your peripheral vision or something, I don't know, I could have been, I don't know, somewhere all night, like maybe out for a meal or something, and I haven't really bothered to turn to look left all the way, but all the time I've maybe thought, like, I don't know, there was like a statue there or something, and and then, like, so kind of it's just in your head it's a statue, but it's not until you actually turn and look at it fully that it then actually, it's happened to me a lot of times, where it just turns into something else. Like, it seems to just, in my mind, just change, like, because I've actually visually now realized, like, actually it's not what I thought it was, but my brain was just filling in those gaps to the best of my knowledge, if you know what I mean. I find that quite weird.
Have you ever seen the text, like when you see kind of words written and the letters are kind of slightly distorted on purpose? And the idea is, you see words like they might show you like C and then a H where it's not quite joined like this at the top, so kind of a H with the bars moving in at the top, and then T. So you see, or sorry, you might look at it and, sorry, not CHT, but I can't remember the word that they were using in it now, but where the H can be either a H or an A, and then they put the rest of the sentence around the word, and the word is never filled in. It's just left sitting with the H almost touching to an A, but not quite. And depending on the context around the word, you'll read it and you won't notice that the letter isn't quite right, and you will either pick A or H depending on the context of the rest of the sentence. And your brain will see it and it'll just go, oh yeah, that's an A, and it won't even show you that it's not quite an A, because your brain has just decided, I don't need to bother Craig with this. It's he's busy. He has stuff to be doing. I can take this task and I can do a little bit of microprocessing on it, and I can get some bit of information, and I can pass the rest off to Craig, and he can deal with the answer rather than having to waste all his time dealing with all the other stuff around us. Like, if you think about the sheer vast amount of data we take in, like the data about your environment, like, even though we don't really pay attention to it, you can feel all the drafts around your face and around your body. Like, you can feel all of them. All the wind blowing against all the different parts of your face. Where your hands are. Like, even when you're not looking, if your hands are behind your back, you have a sense and where they are because of all the sensory organs you have going along there. The fact that your eyes take in pictures, you can see movement. Just the sheer amount of data that you're taking in and processing is absolutely massive. So in order to actually handle that, a lot of that is not looked at deeply. It's just very snap, quick decisions made based on kind of this context makes this fit, I'm going to run with that. And then it's not until kind of critical points where you go, okay, now I need to examine further, or now my brain needs to actually dive a bit deeper in. And sometimes that can be too late and we can have made the wrong decision.
A terrible mistake. Some people could probably, going over the top, well, literally, but like step off a cliff or something, like, because your mind has been filling in something and you haven't actually paid attention, and next thing you know, you're dropping to your death.
No, literally. There's so my work is architecture and structural engineering. So my adult life has been spent with building codes, and building codes are pretty much like so many areas of our lives, written after the fact, after there's been a problem. And one of the things that has worked its way into building codes is the spacing of rails on a staircase or a guardrail, a balcony rail. And that's because infants haven't developed depth perception. Infants don't have depth perception. I mean, physiologically, they can perceive their ability to see depth is the same as a child or an adult, but their brain has not made the connection yet that what they're seeing means a change in elevation. They see the difference, but their brains have not begun to interpret what they're seeing yet. And so babies will crawl off, put a baby that's just beginning to crawl on a table, and it'll crawl right off the table and fall to the floor because he doesn't register.
It's just a different color.
Yeah, right. Now, physiologically, he has all that he needs to perceive the change in depth, but the brain hasn't yet made the connection. And so the spacing of guardrails in the United States was reduced from 6 inches, 15 centimeters to 10 centimeters, 4 inches, because they didn't really understand that about infants, and keeping them 6 inches apart, they could still crawl through them and would crawl through them and did and fell, with horrible consequences. And that's what it took to finally get the spacing reduced. So that's an interesting example of our the physical perception and our brain's interpretation of what we perceive and how it develops over our as our bodies develop.
Yeah, when you start like that and you don't have depth perception, you also don't have object permanence, which is just really baffling to think about. So, like, again, at that stage, because again you haven't really developed the mental capacities to understand stuff. As far as you're aware, when I see something, it exists. When I don't see the thing, it stops existing, because that's all you know at the time. Because again, you haven't learned to hang on over years of experience. Just because this person has left my vision doesn't mean they won't ever come back to it again. So you start building up that. Oh no, hang on, things can exist when I stop seeing them. But when you're younger and when you start, and again, it's like that. Your eyes have all the equipment, all the rods and the cones. They're all there. You can know people are around, but you don't make those connections. You don't yet have the, I suppose in that case, it's experience to realize that just because something leaves your perception doesn't mean it won't at some point come back. And at that stage, and that's where you get, like, the kids' games, like, peekaboo and stuff like that. Like, literally when you're gone from a child's perception, and like when you're out of their view, you're gone. You stop existing.
Yeah. I've seen a child sort of like, they'll kind of cover their eyes and then they think that they've gone invisible because they can't see anyone. You know what I mean? And it's just like, nobody can see me. Like, no, we can still see you. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it is funny, isn't it? One thing I find fascinating, actually, with obviously how humans would have evolved from, is it primates? Apes or something, how obviously, say, apes and monkeys and things, they're born, or usually they probably have got depth perception, and very quickly they have to be able to cling on to their mum and realize that they can't fall from a big height, and this will be within hours and days of being born. And obviously what I've heard is, obviously with humans, is the human brain needs a lot more time to develop, but obviously the evolution of that kind of fascinates me, how the newborn that was coming from humans that evolved, rather than say primates and monkeys, would have kind of been devolving in a way. They would have had to forget things and not always grab onto money and devolve. But there are still things, like obviously the baby's grip, isn't it? They do still have these certain aspects where apparently, when you put your finger in a baby's hand, it will kind of instantly just grab it. And, so there are still remnants of our past, if you know what I mean. But that's as far as I can decipher. But yeah, it fascinates me.
Just on devolved, slight trigger.
I saw your face just go bright red.
Yeah, twitching.
Devolve.
Yeah, evolution doesn't have a direction.
No.
I mean,
No.
again, because of the
Evolved in a
arrogance of
different
humanity, we assume that things evolved to be us. Nonsense.
Yeah.
You know, that's just not how it works at all. Again, things just manage to change to stay alive, and that's the thing. And if you're alive, then you're currently at the top of your evolutionary game. And then if stuff changes and you stay alive, you're still at the top of your evolutionary game. And that's it. It doesn't have a direction. Like, I mean, you know,
And you're not alive, you're no longer at the top.
Well, that's it. And something losing a feature might be, you know, it might still be a positive fact, or it might be a negative fact, but that's still evolution. Even if it's a negative thing that's happened to you, you've evolved negatively. It's still, like, we're only ascribing negative and positive to it based on what we think it should be, which again isn't how it works. It's just stuff surviving.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's
I
so
was
true.
watching one of these, who was it? I don't know. One of these Christian apologists that produces regularly on YouTube. Oh, Father Kerry Walters. I did a little video about him recently. It's a subject I rarely cover on my channel, but I saw this video by this, and it was what got me to talking about Advaita Vedanta, actually. It was in response to a comment on his video. But what I found was that Father Kerry Walters was giving all the things that are wrong with atheists. And he was doing what I've heard so many of them do, which was to place values on, like what you were just saying, Dave, about evolution. We are imposing a set of values of what's valuable to us, and then casting an idea about evolution in terms of what's valuable to us. But in fact, that's not evolution. It doesn't care. It doesn't exist. In a sense, it doesn't exist as a conscious force or a conscious being. It's just a process. It's a process. It's not an entity. It just happens. It's what's happening between. It's a relationship. It's a word to describe a relationship between things. Evolution, between environment and organisms, between organisms and organisms, and what is valuable to us or meaningful to us has absolutely no bearing on it. But I've heard a lot of apologists structure their arguments about what's wrong with evolution, for example. They're wearing a set of blinders that they can only see it in terms of their own values, and they evaluate it in terms of their own values. And so their evaluation of it is all screwed up, because the terms on which they're evaluating it have nothing to do with the physical reality. You know, in the bigger scheme of things, it's not all about us. It's not.
Yeah. And that is one of the worst human traits, I think, is and I do it myself, you know, obviously with my devolution quote, but how you know, we're not that important, are we? You know, we really aren't that important.
To the universe, we don't matter a damn.
Right. To the universe, no.
But it's I think what you were saying earlier on there, it's the Douglas Adams. Have you heard the Douglas Adams puddle analogy?
Yes.
And it's basically around, imagine a puddle gets sentience one day and wakes up, and it looks around and it looks and goes, oh wow, isn't this hole that I'm in so perfectly made for me? It's just amazing how I fit so perfectly into this hole. You know, this hole must be made specifically for me. Whereas in reality, what has happened is, you know, there was a hole and the water spread out to fit the hole. So the water has molded itself to fit the environment.
Yeah. I love that one. I love that puddle analogy. It's so true.
Yeah.
And it's
just
so
because you're there. No, sorry, mate. Yeah, I was just going to say, just because you're there, it doesn't mean that what's there is there for you, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
In fact, maybe you're just there because of it.
Yeah. God, that sounded that felt quite philosophical then. Yeah, I might have to get that on a little short. Oh, classic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap the stream up in about 5 minutes, I reckon, guys. That'll be a nice round number. Is 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool for you
Midnight here.
to both join me.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah, it
fun,
was
man.
a real pleasure.
Yeah. I feel like we're all also now getting really warmed up. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I kind of feel a bit bad. We're like really
I'm
now
getting a little
into
bit sleepy. I
nature.
was actually thinking about bowing out shortly anyway. So.
Well, isn't that what
Yeah.
you're supposed to do anyway? Leave them wanting more.
Yes.
That's right.
Thing is,
We
that's
hope you all
leaving me
want
with more.
I haven't been able to look at any side chat. So if people have said anything to me, I'm sorry. I'm not able to watch the side chat. But I'm happy to be here today, and it's a treat to be able to talk with you all.
Cool, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
Bullet
pleasure
Bill
talking to
here.
you too.
I can't believe I didn't get to go on and talk about evolution. I'm so sorry, mate. That would have been.
Got it.
Oh, I mean, how about next week, Bill? You be my guest. You can be my 8:45er, and we can talk about evolution. Then obviously other guests can come and join us, mate. I'm saying it here and now. I want you as next week's guest. But yeah, sorry, mate. That is a little bit late, and I don't want to just be rude and drag you on for 5 minutes. You're worth more than that, mate. Yeah, you're a really good guy, and I know you would have a lot to say with evolution. Yeah, but yeah, no, Deadly Dave and FEP, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. What's been your sort of highlight for the evening? Your favourite little bit of discussion?
Oh boy, that's tough. It's
That
all
is
sort
tough.
of like
As soon as I said that, I
one big
realised it was going
celebration. It's all been like one big celebration for me. I've enjoyed all of it. I'm not sure I can look back. I've also got 2 glasses of wine and a cup of hot chocolate in my belly, so I'm getting kind of relaxed and not sure that I can remember all the details at this point.
I think tonight's been very eventa, very what as one. Yes,
Well, I
like
hope it's been entertaining for all our friends out there.
yeah. Oh no, and like I say, Bill, mate, we'll have a listen back later. I was a little busy today. Yeah, that's fine. It's a date, so me and Bullet Bill next Friday, and obviously you two guys are welcome back. And as anyone, excuse me,
is it Friday
as
or
anybody
Thursday?
else is as well. Thursday. Did I say Friday?
You did, yeah.
Thursday. Yep, next Thursday. It might be Friday in some other countries, but it'll be Thursday here.
Splitting hairs, I think there now.
Okay.
Is it Thanksgiving today, or was it yesterday?
Today's Thanksgiving. In the United States, all my family will be celebrating Thanksgiving. I'm here in France by myself at the moment, so I'm celebrating with you guys.
Nice, mate. So happy Thanksgiving to, if there is any other USA compadres over there, and
yes,
anyone else that does celebrate it. Any excuse for me, any excuse. There's always a party. So it's always a day that I look forward to. I'm only joking, but it's nice to have people. Charlie Welch, my first Thanksgiving alone. You're not alone, dude. You're with us, mate. You're with us.
Yes.
Yeah, absolute legend. Robski, great work, fellas. I hope that we did. I know Robski's a bit of a fan of Deadly Dave, so I hope we had some good arguments there for you, mate, and some good conversation. Give thanks to the turkeys. That's what I say, multi-tom tom. I'm looking forward to a bit of turkey at Christmas myself. So yeah, guys, should we have a little roundup and then we'll say goodbye?
Sure.
FE peer review, mate. Have you got anything you'd like to add?
Oh, I have a little kitty cat that lives in the neighborhood and comes and visits me most mornings. And I used to have a cat ages ago who, first time he saw a mirror, got really worried, but he very quickly figured out what the mirror was all about. So a cat is capable of understanding a mirror and that he's seeing himself. Well, this little kitty hasn't figured that out yet, but he has figured out that the cat that he sees in the shower glass, who lives on the other side of the shower glass, isn't a threat because that cat never leaves the bathroom. So if he just doesn't go in the bathroom, he's okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. It's like, why doesn't he come out of the shower? Like, it's so funny. Oh, see, I used to hear that, like, I've definitely heard that dogs couldn't see their own reflection, which I know is not true because I've seen a dog of mine see himself in the mirror, but I don't think there's any animal that couldn't see themselves in the mirror. I don't know.
I think we're
I don't
just
think
scratching
they
the
could.
surface as to what animals actually experience. I think we're really just
Yeah.
scratching the surface.
I think there, though, and not to start up a whole new conversation, but you've got to watch between the swap in words that happen there, and you're talking about what animals can see and what animals can experience, and they're two very different things. You're correct.
Yeah.
We're scratching the surface of what animals can experience. However, we can know with quite good detail what animals see because we know how eyes work, and we can map out how eyes work, and we can work out what animals see. But it's like that problem I was mentioning earlier, where just like human brains, animal brains also probably don't just show them the exact image that their eyes see. Their brains interpret it, and maybe their interpretation skills are not as good as ours. Therefore, they can't process that data and turn it into something relevant. But again, they have the equipment, and the equipment does the work. It's just whether or not the processing node or the brain itself can turn that into some useful information.
You know, things like mirrors. They are finding ways of testing to see if animals can come to recognize themselves. And apparently some animals are better at it than others. But the very fact that an animal can recognize itself in a mirror means it has a sense of self. It has a self-awareness. I mean, so there's stuff like that. This is, again, not my field of expertise. I know all about concrete, but this is the stuff that's going on in science now that wasn't going on so much when I was a kid. And this is where I see it coming together with a sense that there's more interconnectedness than we have been aware of, in the past.
Has anyone seen that video of that huge, like, silverback gorilla that's like somebody put a huge mirror up in a jungle or something, and this silverback kind of finds it, and he's literally going up to it and pounding on it, and he's trying to attack it, and and it shows you obviously how intelligent a silverback gorilla would be, and it didn't realize it was him that was, he didn't at any point go, oh my god, like, it's copying my every move. He just was going blah, 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 and trying to kill himself basically. But
imagine, and again, something we fall for quite a lot is we think that we know lots of stuff, forgetting about the stuff we've learned from from the past. And imagine a situation where you saw a mirror for the first time ever, having no previous experience with any reflective surface whatsoever. So you've never come across a reflective surface before. Now you see a mirror. Of course you think it's another something like you. I mean, you're not going to assume it's your reflection, because that's bonkers to assume. In fact, that's the irrational position to hold in the situation where you've never seen another reflective surface. To assume that this is a mirror and a reflection of yourself at that point in time is an irrational belief to hold, because that's not where the evidence points you. Now, as you go over it and you start waving at it and stuff like that, perhaps then you start building up evidence to say, hang on, perhaps this is a mimic of me. But if you've never experienced a reflective surface before, then you can't conclude it's a reflective surface, because then you're just making stuff up.
I know mirrors were probably around when ships were around, but maybe, like, say, a sailor or someone, or looking over a cliff or something, might have seen their reflection in the water maybe and thought, like, oh, there's a mermaid down there, but actually, like, at that time didn't realize that they're actually looking at their own reflection or something.
Probably a lot of, out at sea for long periods of time with poor health causing hallucinations as well.
Well, yeah, probably. Yeah, good call. Deadly Dave, you got anything else you'd like to add before we call it one?
Not a whole pile, I suppose. As was mentioned once or twice before, I do like disagreements on religion. It's something I particularly enjoy. But I think maybe not a lot of people enjoy disagreeing with me on religion. So it doesn't happen very often. So if there are any people at any stage that would like to disagree with me on religion, I'd love to hear about it.
Well, we've got a few multi-tom we've had and a few others. So, yeah, always open to
Absolutely,
to
I'd
have
love it.
anybody on here, whatever belief you have. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we should try and set it up. Any for multi-tom, mate. And I know Gary Wybenger has been on like Mr. Sensible's channel and loads of other channels, to be honest. Loads, and he seems quite reasonable. And if you came on, mate, we would be reasonable with you. Yeah, Deadly Dave's face there is in person. He's not as scary as it. Well, not scary, but it's not as you know. In the chat, shall we say? He's a little bit more brash than talking to him in person. He suddenly seems like a lot nicer person. Yes, but no, thank you all, everyone that has come along today. It's been absolutely pleasurable. And every peer review, so glad you jumped on, mate. We'll have to have you on as a guest as well. We'll just call everyone out, get every one of you on here, one-on-one, and then other people can jump on as well. Multi-Tom, well, thanks for being a viewer as well, mate. Thank you. You're obviously, a supporter of the channel, so thank you, Multi-Tom. Jamala Moo, thank you for coming along. Deadly Dave, of course I want to sin. Martin H, David Oliver, Bullet Bill, Robski, Biggest Doggus, Thurston 2, and everybody that has watched and maybe watches afterwards. Oh, Deadly Dave's got his finger up.
1 second, I do want to. So I see Multi-Tom has put a comment right down there at the end saying, I don't seem that deadly, to be honest. Awesome. Come on then. Please come on and disagree with me on religion. Please.
Yes. Come on, that seems like you got to step up to that one, Multi-Tom. You can't claim that and then not step up to the plate. It would be fun. I could even just act as a moderator or something. I won't chime in. And just let you two guys have a chat. That'd be pretty cool. And I'm sure the chat would love that as well, because I know that people love a good debate and when people get a little bit riley as well. So, yeah, everyone. Bullet Bill, mate, next week. What a legend. So we're going to call it one, guys. Stay safe and, oh, wrong button, and keep it global. I'm going to bring out another video before next week as well. It'll be my first actual non-live video for about a month. So, yeah, look out for that.